Support for this podcast comes from Vonk. Vonk supports global enterprises worldwide, driving efficient hiring through AI-powered job distribution and recruitment intelligence. Vonk recently unveiled Echo, a new AI agent ecosystem designed to make overwhelmed TA teams and outdated funnels a thing of the past. Echo rebuilds the hiring process for speed, clarity, and fairness without losing human control. To find out more, go to vonk.com. And Vonk is spelled V-O-N-Q. That's vonk.com.
There's been more of scientific discovery, more of technical advancement and material progress in your lifetime and mine than in all the ages of history.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the March edition of Recruiting Future Roundup. If you've not listened to Roundup before, it is the opportunity to hear us talk about the episodes that have been published on Recruiting Future in the last month, so you don't miss the insights that are being shared by my amazing guests. Now, this roundup, we're not streaming it live on LinkedIn and we don't have video for lots of logistical reasons, but I am delighted. We are recording it live and I'm delighted to welcome Rhona back to Roundup. Rhona, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me back. This is always a fun episode to record with you.
Absolutely. And it's always a pleasure to record things with you. And actually, we published an interview that we recorded at Transform literally only a few days ago. So, good to have you back on the show so quickly. I'm sure that regular listeners will know exactly who you are, but just give us a little quick intro for people who might be hearing you for the first time. I can't believe there is anyone who fits into that category, but there might be.
No, thank you. I am Rhona Pierce. I am the founder and creative director of Workfluencer Media. I'm a former recruiter, and now I work with companies doing employee-generated content, just all sorts of video content and social media marketing for founders specifically. And I'm also the host of the Workfluencer podcast.
Fantastic. And I would recommend that everyone checks out that podcast. It is truly great. And I always enjoy listening to it. So let's get into the March episodes. There are a lot of episodes published in March on the podcast, so we haven't got the time to look into all of them, but we're going to look into 5 of them, basically, which I think are a really interesting selection. So the first one is, if you want to check out these episodes, you can find them in the podcast feed, or alternatively, you can go to recruitingfuture.com, and all the past episodes are there if you didn't listen to them the first time. So the first one we're going to talk about, it was episode 774, Will Candidate AI Use Transform Recruiting? And it was an interview with Sam Wright, and Sam runs a company called Hunter, which is spelled Huntr. And what they do is they provide AI software for candidates to help them in the apply process. Now, I've been wanting to interview someone in this market for a really long time because I think it's really, really interesting. And there are a lot of I don't quite know the right word to use, but there are a lot of companies sort of exploiting candidates in this space. So it was good to talk to Sam because his company is doing some really, really interesting stuff helping candidates. They also had a fascinating report out where they'd basically sort of distilled the data from all the candidates and applications that had gone through their system to see who was getting interviews, the platforms that were working the best. So it's a really interesting discussion. There's a few things that stood out for me, but Rhona, before we start, I want to know what you thought of this one.
No, I really loved this one, and I just loved the insights from the report that they did. And I'm probably jumping in on what stood out to you because I'm sure it was similar, but I just loved the fact that we're still customizing your resume for a job, and still these human things that we've been talking about for decades at this point are still the most important things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was really interesting. And I think the other thing for me is I think that in talent acquisition, we sometimes look at the software on this side of the market and think, it's a bit of a grift, it's a bit of a spam, this is just a trend, it's an annoyance, it's cheating, all these kind of things. And this particular bit of software is much, this particular platform is much more than spamming applications. It's quite good and quite sophisticated, but that's obviously what a lot of the software is doing. I think all the innovation in our sector is going to come from the client side. The candidate side, because I think that candidates are embracing this technology. They're already breaking recruiting systems, or not even breaking, they're just showing up where recruiting really falls short. The fact that we're relying on resumes, to do matching, which are always limited in the amount of information that they can carry. And I just think it's really interesting from that perspective. I really think that this is where the innovation is going to happen in talent acquisition, not on the employer side. Rhona, do you agree? Do you disagree?
100% agree with that. And for many reasons, but a lot of what you said. And it's like for years, we've been trying, like even all of the innovation quotes that you see out there that happens on our side, on the recruiting side, is really just automating or like systematizing what we've been doing for decades. There's really no big change. I think the opportunities for change are here on the candidate side, and especially on how we're evaluating skills and how we're selecting it, because the resume is not it. Anyone who's ever heard me talk knows how I'm allergic to resumes. So
I think we both are. We've had this conversation so many times, haven't we? But I think this is this is what's showing it up, and I think it's this isn't going to pass. It's only going to get worse. So it's something that everyone needs to think about. And I would definitely listen to this episode, because I think Sam had some really, really good insights on this. Let's move on to the next one. So 775, what makes an excellent workplace? Really like this episode. It was a double interview with a German company called Statista. Many people may have heard of them in the context of all the data that they kind of provide, in various sectors. They're very much kind of landing in the employment talent space, employer branding space at the moment. And it was an interview with their Annika, who's their CPO, and Giovanni, who's their director of TA. And it was, I think it's the first time I've ever had a CPO and a director of TA on the podcast at the same time. And that was interesting. And we covered a lot of stuff. We sort of started talking about the hiring challenges that they're having. They encourage candidates to use AI in their application, because they, candidates will be using AI when they do the job. And then we kind of moved on to talk about, they have a partnership with Time Magazine. They've got a methodology for ranking excellent employers, basically. So if you listen to this, and I'll put the link in the show notes, you can check that out and see if it's something that you want to look into for your organization. Lots in this one.
This is my jam. Anytime we're talking about employer branding and all of these things, this is where I really light up. I loved this episode. I think the thing that stood out for me the most was a practical example of what we've been asking for and talking about for years, about getting that so much coveted seat at the table and being strategic and all of that. And they gave a true example of what's happening, and what I think should have been happening since the beginning of forever is TA is being consulted, and that was at their company, on should we even backfill this role? Is there someone internally that we should be using? All of that. I think that was great. I think more teams need to be looking into this and just how you're using, because yes, now you have all of this free time, in quotes, right? Because of all the tools and all the AI that you have, that we have the opportunity to be more strategic, to be thinking about these things. I absolutely loved this episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, it was kind of really sort of multifaceted conversation. I think I will try and have a CHRO and a director of talent acquisition on again, because it was a really interesting dynamic. Just to give a little bit more context about, it's the Excellent Workplace Rating, which they are launching with Time Magazine. And I'll put the link in the show notes, but I would seriously check that out, because it's a really kind of interesting project. Okay, so let's move on to, and do you know what? I think did we manage to talk about a whole episode there and not mention AI? I'm just checking. We may well have done, which could be a miracle because I don't think that's happened for about 2 years. But I have to check. I'll check the recording back, but I think we might have done it. Anyway, back to AI for the next one. Episode 777, why AI needs to drive value and not efficiency. Really love this conversation. I sort of put it up on LinkedIn yesterday. It's been getting quite a lot of comments of people sort of having the sort of same opinion as me. Talking about lots of things in this. Kelly is Kelly Monahan is who the interview is with, and she's basically a labor economist. And we were talking about the effect that AI is having on jobs and how companies are responding to that. And again, Rhona, this is something that we've talked about a lot. So interested to see what you think. But the kind of headlines were, at the moment, a lot of companies are just using AI to justify cost cutting to deal with other business challenges. Some of them sort of dating back to the pandemic. And really, the crux of this is, implementing AI isn't about efficiency savings, because they're just really kind of one-off hits, and it's really been shown that actually companies aren't thinking that either. They're just using it as an excuse to lay people off, or in the case of one very big tech company, laying people off to fund buying a big AI infrastructure system. So some crazy things going on in the market out there, and obviously lots of employees suffering because of that. But what we really got into in here was like actually thinking about how AI creates value. How does it create new value for a company? What is it that AI does that creates value beyond, cutting people or efficiency savings? Because I think when we get to that, we're in a very, very different place. Rhona, what did you think of this one?
I loved this episode. I loved the framing of, yes, it was an episode about AI, how to use it. I agree with all of the things that were said as far as like, yes, where companies are using this as an excuse. It's really like AI is the new scapegoat for like fixing all of the problems that we ourselves created for ourselves, starting in the pandemic and times like that. But I loved the reminder of like, look, you can cut people right now because of AI, but that's not going to help you. You still need strong domain expertise because AI hallucinates. We know it. We see it all day, every day. You can't just like accept what it says. So I love that approach and like that reminder. I was also very interesting because I had never thought about it this way. All of the companies like removing entry-level roles and first-level roles, like young people are losing access to that apprenticeship model of having like the people with the subject matter experts that are the boomers that are leaving the workforce soon. And then we just have AI doing it and like no one there to mentor and pass on that information. So that was very interesting point for me.
That was the other thing that really came out of this. It's like the consequences of slashing entry-level roles on future talent pipelines, on skills development, and ultimately the long-term competitiveness of that business. And it's interesting because a number of years ago, we saw something like this in the energy industry where there was, on the back of one of the big recessions, they didn't invest in entry-level talent. And what that meant, I don't have the precise dates for this, but 10 years later or whatever it was, there was suddenly a massive skill shortage of senior people, qualified and with the experience they needed. So, we don't quite know how AI is going to affect jobs, but I think it is incredibly short-sighted to scrap entry-level programs and think we'll just be okay, because these things catch up with you pretty quickly. I think it was, Kelly made some excellent points about that. And also points about, if you do use AI solely for efficiency and you don't look at the way that work gets done, you're just leading to burnout because people are, it's not a good outcome. It doesn't drive value. And sometimes people end up doing more work just to try and get, AI to sort of fit into their existing processes.
Yeah. This is a great episode that I think everyone should listen to. All of the episodes were great, but this is one conversation from a different angle that I think a lot of people are overlooking. And it's really like, it's like the worry that I have. And I know we've spoken about this many times. It's like, okay, what are we doing right now? We're like destroying the future of our companies and our talent pipeline. So this is an amazing episode.
Absolutely. And I think also it's worth saying that I'm seeing a number of companies who are actually doubling down on entry-level hiring and thinking about AI skills and all those kind of things. So, a big cheer to those companies who get this and will not have these problems in the future. So definitely worth mentioning that as well. Okay, on to the next one, 778. This is an interview with Jason Serrato, who is the SVP Global Talent at Amentum. It's about the third or fourth time Jason's been on the show, actually, and it's always great to have him because he has a unique background. He was a TA leader, then he was a Gartner analyst, then he worked on the strategy side of a vendor, and now he's a global head of talent. So is someone who's seen the industry from every single angle. And really, a lot of this interview is about what he's finding is different from the last time he was a TA leader, which I think is about a sort of 10-year gap or something like that. And then he talks about really how TA leaders can connect with the business, make business impact. And we talk a lot about, technology investment as well. Rhona, do you know Jason at all? What did you make of this one?
This was an amazing episode. This is, before I was talking a lot about EGC and employer branding, this was my thing. Like, we need to speak the language of the business. And I really loved how he clearly explained all of it. It's like the differentiator right now, it's like, it's fit, right? You shouldn't be talking about, oh, this is for productivity. This is for this. This is for this. It's like, stop talking about efficiency and transactions and start talking about revenue generation and cost avoidance and risk reduction and compounding returns. Like, these types of things I think were really great. And really, the crux of it was how the conversation has shifted from process to technology, but the real shift is from efficiency to impact.
Yeah, I think that impact thing was really interesting. He talks about how he talks to the finance people within his business, how he talks to the CFO, how his organization have realized just how important talent is, and the impact of that, and how he's helped achieve that, and it's a really great episode from that kind of influencing perspective. I think the other thing is we did chat also about the confusing technology landscape in terms of what does an organization buy in terms of technology, and obviously, Rhona, we were both at Transform a couple of weeks ago, just looking out on the expo floor, just a sea of AI vendors. And I think Jason makes some kind of interesting points because he's talking about how you kind of build a tech stack when everyone has overlapping capabilities. And a lot about it is really kind of bespoke to how the company gets value, and also, what some of the core competencies are of those vendors. So definitely kind of listen to that bit as well, because I think it's an interesting sort of footnote to the rest of the conversation.
And I really also think that his point about how adoption of the software is really what's going to make it be part of your tech stack, and if it works or not. I think a lot of the higher level or the senior level leadership is who goes to these conferences, who gets pitched by these vendors, and everyone has AI and everyone has this and this. And you're not necessarily looking at wait a minute, what are the people that I'm buying this software for actually using it for? Are they actually using it? How is it being used? That type of thing, I think, is also something very important that he called out.
So onto the last one, 779, AI first recruiting at Coinbase. This was an interview with LJ Brook, who is the Chief People Officer at Coinbase. And it's interesting because it was quite a short conversation, but we packed a lot into it. It was sort of very dense. We were talking about talent density. We were talking about, how AI can handle things at scale. It's always interesting to talk to tech organizations like Coinbase, because they'll always be at the cutting edge of this stuff because it's in their DNA. Really, the most interesting thing, I thought, well, everything was interesting, but the thing I want to sort of pull out first was he spoke about democratizing access to opportunity. And I think this is a kind of a really important point with what's going on at the moment, and kind of reflects the first episode that we talked about in terms of the candidate software side of things. So Coinbase get 1.5 million applications a year. And basically, no human team can sift through 1.5 million applications. So they've implemented AI. They do some phone screens right at the start of the process, so the candidate can pick the time they want to be interviewed, and really kind of add the sort of the nuance and the additional information to their application. And he was very clear that this is actually opening doors to people who would previously have disappeared into a black hole because their application would not have been got to, maybe because of the timing of when it came in or whatever it was. So a really interesting take on it. You don't hear people saying that out loud very often, that we don't actually have time to read all the applications. Therefore, this is a better way. Maybe people should be kind of more honest about that. What did you think of that aspect?
I think the aspect was brilliant, and it's time that we start talking about it because, yes, I understand why we started saying a human reads every application. I get it because we were like combating that, beat the ATS and all of that, right? But the truth is now in 2026, the technology has got up to where it is, and also the market is wild. So for companies, and it's not just like large companies like Coinbase, it's like every company is getting a high volume of applications. I think it's high time that we start talking about, yes, we're using it in this way. It's still ethical. And I do agree that it gives an opportunity to people who would have absolutely never, like we've all recruited, we all know, you look at a certain amount of applications and when you find what you find, you stop, right? And you keep going. But with tools like this, you truly give everyone the opportunity.
It's almost become like a common thing to say that, we know the recruiters only spend 7 seconds on a resume or 8 seconds on a resume, whether that's true or not. It doesn't really matter because that's what the candidates, sticks in the candidate's mind. So, I think this is something that other companies should think about in terms of how they're talking about how they use AI in recruiting. A couple of other things that came out of it. The next one was we talked a lot about talent density, something that we discussed before. It's something that a lot of tech companies like to talk about. The idea is that every single hire raises the bar, is higher quality, and raises the average capability of your organization. And I think it's really interesting because I think a lot of this is about how tech companies have kind of moved from focusing on quantity, we need more people in, we just need anyone with the skills, to really focusing on quality as that sort of talent market has shifted. I think that's interesting. He also talked about AI fluency, how every candidate is now assessed on their ability to use AI effectively, but that's tailored by role and by level. So it's not just a kind of a blanket, do you have AI skills or do you have these kind of technical skills? It's what's appropriate to the roles that they're hiring. So I think what this means is they're thinking very, very carefully about every role and every hire that they make, and also thinking very carefully about, where AI fits with that. What did you take from the talent density part of the conversation?
That was amazing. I think that makes me happy because we're moving further and further away from, my allergy to the resume. We're actually evaluating people's skills because there's no way you can do this by just focusing on whatever the person said. You really have to evaluate true skills evaluation. So to me, that was an amazing, amazing thing. I think more companies should start doing this. And really, he gave such great examples of how they're doing things. I think that was what I love the most about this episode.
And I think the other thing that I'd want to sort of finish with is when we were talking about the future, which is a question I ask everyone who comes on the podcast, he was really talking about what if we move to a world where recruitment for every role looked like executive recruitment? Executive recruiting, where rather than managing workflow, we're talking about, precision selection, crafting hiring processes at all levels, and using technology to do that at scale. And I thought that was an interesting take.
Yes, I think that's an interesting take, and I think he's absolutely right. I think that's where we're headed. I think that's where we should be headed. And again, it goes back to like truly curating a team and being that strategic partner and like really showing the value that talent acquisition has for a company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all these episodes, in March tied together really, really well to sort of paint a picture of what's going on and what some very clever employers and very clever people are doing. So thank you very much to all the guests who came on the show in March. Got some fantastic interviews already publishing in April, including one with Rhona that's already live that you can go and see. So make sure you check those out. Thank you as ever, Rhona, for your insights on everything. It's always great to talk to you. And that's it for Roundup for this month. Roundup will be back again at the end of April, and we will try and get it back as a LinkedIn live stream again. But for now, thank you very much, and thank you, Rhona.
Thanks for having me.
This is my show.